Guys, handing that out, and I won't go too far here because I want to make sure that everybody gets this. But here I had a great question as soon as I came in tonight. And in the Bible lands, kind of feeling around, seeing how everybody's liking the class. And I said, well, I like it, but I want to see how it looks on the big scale. So here's how it looks on the big scale. So what would this be right here? Red Sea. Here we go. We got the little rabbit ears. Right there in the point of the rabbit ear would be what? Mount Sinai. Very good. All right. And of course, then from right in here, all the way over here would be what? Fertile Crescent. All right. And so we got the Caspian Sea, Black Sea, Mediterranean Sea. Here's the boot, which is Italy. Of course, Rome is there. So this is kind of where we're at. This is the continent of Europe, the continent of Asia, the continent of Africa. And so that might help you to get kind of a feel, because some of you are like me, you're not geographers, and I'm not either. But what I want to do is I want to learn the Bible lands. I want to learn them better. And so that's why we're studying that section. But that kind of gives you an overview of the world in that area, the Indian Ocean and everything that's there. A lot of familiar names up there you can see. Let's see, what was I going to say? Clint, where were you guys at in Africa? Where would Tanzania be at on there? Do you know? Way down in here. Okay. All right, so Clint was a long way from the Fertile Crescent. He probably smelled a good soil up there. I know he had an old farm boy. But so that's where it's at. Does that help a little bit? That kind of gives us a little idea where the big scale is. All right? And wish I'd have paid better attention in school when they were going over world countries, So I know where Wisconsin's at, and Pennsylvania. I think I know where that's at. You go north of Pennsylvania, right? That's what I thought. So all right. So that helps everybody maybe get a little bit better idea. All right. So now can I just click it and it'll get right back to my other slide? Yep. Oh, you guys are great. All right, great. All right. So I don't want to spend a lot of time in review tonight. I just want to kind of jump right into our lesson. We are on your page 4, right at the Euphrates. Now what I don't want to do is I don't want to talk real fast and just blow through this lesson, but I want to move through it. Some of this stuff we're going to deal with in detail in other lessons, and so I don't need to spend a lot of time on it tonight. But we stopped with number 2, which is the Euphrates. It is known as what? Genesis 15:18. Anybody have an opportunity to look that up? What is it now? It's the river. Very good. Excellent. Get caught back up here. There we go. And so it's known as the river in that text. It's also known as the Great River. I think that's what you said, Rhonda, right? It is also known as the Great River. Very good. We talked about this last week right at the close. Babylon sat on the banks of the Euphrates River. And it also formed the northern boundary under King Solomon. All right, so this is kind of like the northernmost boundary there. And I give you some passages that you can look to on that. Then there is the Orontes River. Let's find the Orontes on here. Let's see. Is it on here? No, it's right here, I think. Isn't that terrible? I can't read that. Can anybody read that better than I can? It is, it enters the Mediterranean Sea. No, it's not on this map because it's over here. It's over in Asia Minor. So have that on this map. I doubt. Okay, perfect. Well, the Orontes is kind of an interesting river, and we're going to look at it a little bit closer as we get into Paul's journeys, because on the Orontes River, where it entered the Mediterranean Sea, it was kind of between Antioch and Seleucia. All right, and you remember what Seleucia was? Anybody remember in Paul's journeys what Seleucia was? That was kind of the seaport where he often started. And now remember, there's 2 Antiochs. There's Antioch of Pisidia. We're not talking about that. We're talking about Antioch of Syria. And so he would leave that seaport many times. Acts 13:4 and other passages tells us that. So Paul would begin his missionary journeys. Of course, this is Asia Minor. And he would begin his missionary journeys, I believe, right in this area. Don't quote me on that. I think that's the Orontes River in that region right there. Wish I'd had a map on that, but I don't. So, and you remember, of course, Paul left that port, sailed basically all over the Asia Minor area and all around the world, we might say, in that regard. Then we have the Nile River. If you have any questions or comments, stop me on it, okay? Make sure you do. I just want to kind of keep cruising here. The Nile River, I don't have it on a map either, but it's the longest river system in the world. And basically, without the Nile, Egypt would be nothing. Egypt would be nothing. And so we're looking at the Nile River. Oh, I need to hit the right button. Nile River right in here. And of course, it's the one that basically gives the juice, if you will, to Egypt. All right? And you remember a lot about the Nile River, right? There was a great leader of God that was put in the Nile River. Who was that? Yeah, Moses. And so, what's interesting to me, and I got a dose of this today as I was studying for the next lesson even, it's amazing to me. I was like seeing these things and bringing the stories back and then reading about them and things that I read right over, didn't even realize are in there that really give me a geographical point for the stuff.
Doesn't the Nile River flow north?
It does. It does. Very good. It's the only river that flows north.
No. Fox River.
Okay. I went like this when I said that. So thank you for correcting me. Putting that. It's the largest river in the world, but it is one of the. Where's the Fox River?
Green Bay to Lake Winnebago.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting to know. All right, very good. So that's the Nile River. Not a lot to say about it, except that it feeds Egypt. All right, Egypt's a big part of Egypt. All right. Any questions or comments on that? Here again, I'm not trying to fly through it, and we're not going anywhere. I just want to keep moving with the lesson, so we got more good stuff coming. So, all right. Then we've got the Jordan River. I don't think I even have the Jordan on yours, do I? I don't think I do. And that's because we will cover that when we cover Palestine. Okay? We're going to cover the Jordan. The Jordan's going to be a big part of our study because we're going to be all around the Jordan. So let's go to letter F on your pages. Bottom of page 4, Bible Mountains. All right? So let's go to Bible Mountains. Let's talk a little bit about the mountains here. Now remember, we're still on the survey. So we're just kind of overviewing. We're up here looking down on the Bible lands. We're just kind of seeing what maps the main areas out, okay? So we got some mountains that make up a big part of this. Of course, Ararat, I have a blank there. What landed there? Noah's Ark. Yes, the Ark landed there. Genesis 8 and verse 4. And then we have the Lebanon Mountains. Now, these are north of Canaan. Right here are the Lebanon Mountains. North of Canaan. This is Canaan, and I'm excited when we get to the land of Canaan because this is also known as Palestine. It was known as Canaan when the tribes came in and set up their shop, and I forget what Bible book it is right now off the top of my head, but it begins to be known as well as Palestine. So when people say, this happened in Palestine, they're talking about Canaan. It's all that same area in there. But north of Canaan is the Lebanon Mountains. Lebanon comes from the Semitic root meaning white, okay? And that's interesting. They call it the White Mountains, okay? So we get the Lebanon Mountains. And at the peak of the Lebanon Mountains, one of the beautiful peaks, the highest peak, I believe, is Mount Hermon, okay? Which is in the Lebanon mountain range. Mount Hermon is covered with snow all year long. And I think that's kind of neat. By the way, we're looking at this on a big scale. Mount Hermon, in this general area right in here, the snow melts off of that and feeds the Jordan River. Okay? And so we've got Lake Hula. We've got the Sea of Galilee. I'm sorry, Lake Hula's up here. We've got the Sea of Galilee. We've got the Dead Sea. And so it feeds all that. And so it's pretty fresh water coming down into that. But also, another thing that makes up that Jordan River a lot is the flooding that goes through there. It'll flood that. Flood season goes through, and we'll talk a little bit about it when we get to the climate of the Bible. But it floods that area, and of course, it brings a lot of rich materials in there. Okay? And so it's a good farmland. Here's something that's neat. Right in this area, I don't have Hermon on here. It's on the next one there. Hermon is, and I apologize for not just knowing right what number these are on, but if you got to understand, like for my study of this, I'm looking at like 20 different maps. Got like 3 of them on my computer. I'm looking at them in my Bible. So, I'm a little bit derelict in remembering where all these are. But Mount Hermon, which is in the Lebanon mountain range, at the foot of Mount Hermon, some neat things happen. At the foot of Mount Hermon was Caesarea Philippi. Now, when I say Caesarea Philippi, does that bring anything to your mind? When Jesus came into the coast of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, saying, "Whom do men say that I, the Son of Man, am?" So, isn't that neat? Jesus was right at the foot of that mountain, basically right in that general area. And that was also very near to the ancient city of Dan. All right? And do you remember what happened in Dan? Yes?
Is that where they set up one of the calves?
Exactly. Who are that?
Jeroboam.
Jeroboam. Yeah, Jeroboam the first set up a golden calf in Dan. And you remember that was about 1 Kings 12. Yes, Joshua?
Did he put one in Bethel also?
He did put one in Bethel. Very good. He and I just had that conversation not long ago. But that's where Jeroboam changed everything. He said, you know, if you think about that, he changed the place of worship. I don't know if you remember or not. Sermon I preached a few months ago. It was titled, "Go Tell Jeroboam." I expect me to remember this much better than you. Don't feel bad. And I won't make you feel bad if you don't remember it. But I usually remember my sermons better than anybody. But go tell Jeroboam. And some of the points where he changed the place of worship. He changed the people of worship. He pulled out people out from not in the Levitical priesthood to offer sacrifices. And that was a problem. And there was also a king in the Bible that offered sacrifices not with the Levitical priesthood. Anybody remember who that was? King Saul. Absolutely. You know, and that was a great point in my reading the other day. And I'm going to share this with you real quick. It's not a map, but I think this is interesting. When I think of King Saul, this was me prior to Tuesday. I always think of King Saul disobeying God in 1 Samuel 15, where he was sent to get Agag and knock everybody out, kill everybody. And of course, you remember that story. He came back with Agag and some of the sheep, but I love that. Samuel says to him, "Well, you know, what'd you do?" And he said, "I obeyed the voice of the Lord." And get that story. You ought to read that. I just read it the other day. It was so funny. He said, "Well, what do I hear then? What are the cows and lambs I hear?" And you just almost picture that scenario right there. And of course, he said, "Well, I obeyed the voice of the Lord." Well, he didn't obey the voice of the Lord. That's usually the big sin I think of Saul. But if you go back 2 chapters in 1 Samuel 13, is where he offered sacrifice. And Samuel said, "Hey, because of this, you know, God's going to rip the throne-ship from you." It was just a series of disobeying God. And I'll tell you, Samuel and Saul in that narrative, 1 Samuel 13 to 15, really the entire book of 1 Samuel. But if you look at Saul's life as a king, it really is a good learning lesson for us. When God says something, he means it. You know what I mean? He means it. If this is the way he wants it done, he doesn't want it done that way. And he's not going to accept it that way. And that's just a good reminder for us. Boy, you know, let's do what God says and let's stick with him, because we'll be sure and please him if we do. Mount Hermon, and I'll say a little bit more about this in our land of Canaan. Mount Hermon also was possibly where the Mount of Transfiguration took place. So in this Lebanon mountain range, we have Mount Hermon covered with snow all the time. And a lot of scholars believe in Matthew 17, when Jesus, left the disciples at the foot and he took Peter, James, and John with him up on a mountain. A lot of scholars believe that was the very region. And if you look at it, he was in that region. Now, can I prove that to you? No, but it's good. It's just something to throw out there to think about. He was in that region. We know it was Matthew 16. He was in that very region. He didn't really go anywhere, but he went up on a mountain, and that would have been the mountain there if he hadn't left anywhere. So we believe that. Mount Hermon also had a couple of different names.
Rodney,
Yes.
where you're pointing at, and I just might be because I was looking at a different map, but I thought that the furthest north Jesus went was like around the Sea of Galilee, like all around that area, just a little further north.
Well, he spent a lot of time right in here. There's no question he spent a lot of time in here. But he definitely was up by Dan.
Caesarea Philippi is just above like Damascus, I think. It's not up there by
It's right in here. Here's where this range starts.
Yeah.
And the Mount Hermon's not on here. I'm saying in here somewhere. I'm just going with a peak. These are the Lebanon mountains. Remember, that's just the words there. The words may not even expand as far. Mount Hermon's in this mountain range somewhere, wherever it is on that map. I don't have a good map that really shows that Mount Ararat's here. But he did. He spent some time up in that region. But you're right. Most of his time was spent right into this area, and in particular right in here. Sidon and Tyre. Remember, he talked about those. If they would have heard, they would have repented. It's just great area in there. Very, very rich. Okay. It is also the mountain range in the Lebanon mountains where the Cedars of Lebanon grew. Now, that's probably of great particular interest to Dan. I found that very interesting myself. But it was in that range is where these Cedars of Lebanon. You remember where Solomon sent everybody? You know, he sent everybody, he got a bunch of people. He hired a bunch of people to go up into the Lebanon mountains and get these Cedars of Lebanon to bring them down and build the temple. And so they were just apparently this beautiful, wonderful, clear grain, would have been clear grain, Dan. Just, you know, you can imagine the smell of that. You know, and you can imagine the work that would have gone into that, cutting those trees and bringing them down. You know, that's quite a ways. That's quite a ways. I don't know how they got them. Maybe they floated them down the Jordan. I don't know. I'm not going to say. But I know one thing. That's still quite a ways to bring big logs like that in that time. And, man, there's some neat stuff. I got an archaeological find I want to share with you, too, when we get to it. It's amazing to me. Amazing. It was found in 1980. But we'll keep rolling on that. There's about 400 trees of the Cedars of Lebanon remain. About 400 of them. They're in a protected grove. A protected grove, I should say. So nobody's allowed to go in there and cut them. I'm probably going to get a swing out of it. Damn, got to leave them there, I suppose. I can only imagine how they patrol those 400 trees, you know. You could just almost see everybody had a heart attack if I threw a climbing tree stand on it. It probably just all fell over. So we better stay away from those. But that's the Lebanon mountain range. All right, next we have Mount Carmel. Mount Carmel is right here. And we'll see it better on another map. And I hate to keep saying that, but we are. Because we're going to jump into Mount Carmel. We're going to spend some time on Carmel. Carmel's the thumb in the seacoast. Okay? So if you look at the seacoast going up along there, that thumb that sticks out, that's Mount Carmel. And, of course, you remember a little bit about Mount Carmel, I'm sure. And I'm going to say more about it when we get to the land of Canaan. There's some neat little things that we're going to dive into. But one of the things that happened on Mount Carmel was in 1 Kings 18. And, of course, Elijah challenged the 450 prophets of Baal. I'm going to leave it there right now until I get to the land of Canaan. There's more to that story that's going to, I think, make your head spin. Made mine spin today. So, all right. And then, of course, we come to Mount Sinai. That's down here. Remember, we're just overviewing the land. I'm just showing you some of the major mountains and some of the things that happened on them by way of overview. So we're there on Mount Sinai. You guys remember what happened on Mount Sinai. Of course, Moses received the law from God. And, man, there's a great text in Exodus 34. I got one brewing, guys. I hate to keep saying that because I got all these burners back there brewing. But I've got one brewing from Exodus 34. God said, I'll give you a little insight in this. Go and study it. Maybe you come up with a better sermon than I could for it. If you do, give it to me. I'll preach it. So Exodus 34, Moses said, had just come down off the mountain. And the people were worshiping. You know, you just come off of this mountain right here. Just come off of Mount Sinai. And the people were worshiping the calf. Moses was frustrated. Remember what he did with the law? Broke them. And you leaders, think about this. He was at an all-time low. People left God. He's frustrated. He's as close to God as he's ever been. And now all the people are away from God. And he's so mad. He's so frustrated. He breaks the law. All right? And then in that same context, he says to God, he said, show me your glory. He needed a boost. He said, show me your glory. And this is awesome. I love what God said to him. God didn't say, I won't show you my glory. But by implication, he said, I won't show you my glory. What he said was, I'll show you my goodness. And the Bible says that the goodness of the Lord passed by him. And I thought, wow. So I got one brewing on that because when we think of the glory of God, we think of the majesty and you know, the fire and the lightning and us falling to our knees. But God said, you need a boost? You need something to get you through, Moses? I'm going to show you my goodness. You think about that. Link the goodness of God to the glory of God. Wow. Like I say, it's in the beginning stages. I got it just on simmer right now. But there's a lesson there for us. So that happened. Of course, here is also called Mount Horeb. It's the same mountain. I'll give you the passages you can look to. Write them down or whatever. You get in a Bible discussion sometime. You can, have some proof of that. I know you guys know it, but that way we can have a little bit of proof. All right, and then we're going to go to Mount Nebo. Let's see. Nebo is not on this map. If I had the Eilers maps here, and now with the PowerPoints, I don't want to have them here, but if I flip through the Eilers maps, I told you this before, if you lift up your knee on those Eilers maps, the maps we have running around here, that's about the height of Nebo. And a lot of people think of knee-high Nebo. That's kind of how we found it in school, kind of how we remembered it too. Mount Nebo was where Moses died. Now, there was a peak. And sometimes when you think about mountain, I do this. Sometimes I think about a mountain and I think, here it is. It's a mountain and Moses climbed up on it and he looked, he's standing right on the peak, like the pictures you see. But it's a mountain range. Nebo was like a range. And there was a really high peak in Nebo, in that range, called Pisgah. And when we sing that song, From Mount Pisgah's Lofty Height, I view my home and take my flight. What's that? That's Deuteronomy 34. That's Deuteronomy 34. And so I like songs like that, by the way. Let me just say this in passing. Our songs need to match what God's book says, doesn't it? Because we're singing the Spirit and understanding. We're singing scriptural songs. And so when a song speaks like that right from Deuteronomy 34, man, that just makes my heart swell up with joy. I can sing that song. I can sing that song because you know what? That's exactly what Moses did. And in a sense, that's what we do in life. We're viewing our home, through faith. And one of these days, we're going to die, but we're going to be able to see it. Moses didn't see that physical land. We're going to be able to see, of course, the heaven land. And that's what I'm waiting for. How about you? Everybody waiting for that? I want to go to heaven. That's why I live. That's why I survive. I just want to go to heaven. That's my main goal. All right. Then we've got Mount Ebal. That's not here. Oh, here's Mount Carmel. That's the thumb of the seacoast. There we go. All right. We have Mount Ebal and Mount Gerizim. Anybody remember? I've got them there, but go ahead and tell me. Tell me you read your notes and tell me you're awake. What happened to Mount Ebal and Gerizim? Ebal was cursings. Gerizim was blessings. All right, this is where Joshua read the cursings and the blessings to the children of Israel. Now, when we get to the land of Canaan, I'm going to come back to Ebal and Gerizim, so just hang tight. Wow, you talk about the Bible being God's book. I know you people believe this. I'm not trying to convince you. What I'm trying to do is give you a little ammunition for your magazines. Trying to give you a little ammunition. A magazine's no good if it's empty, right, Pete? Got to put bullets in it, all right? And what we hope to do with Bible study is put bullets in your ammunition, or in your magazine rather, so when you get to Bible discussion, you have something to use. You're not shooting a blank gun. You're not saying, well, yeah, Ebal and Gerizim, well, that's where the blessings and the cursings were read. Boy, you want to prove the Bible's God's book? When we get to the land of Canaan, I'm going to show you why Ebal and why Gerizim were picked. Oh, God didn't pick them on accident. It's amazing. It's amazing. We'll get to that in just a little bit, hopefully. All right, Deuteronomy 11 is where that was. Something great also happened in Mount Gerizim. Anybody remember? Samaritans built their temple there. Now, that takes us through the Bible. A lot of the Bible, what happened in John 4? What did the woman at the well say? That our fathers worshipped in this mountain. You Jews say Jerusalem's a place to worship. Jesus said, well, there'll come a time and place, or there'll come a time rather, when there won't be a place to worship. Seek the Father to worship in spirit and in truth. What he was saying was not in Gerizim or in Jerusalem, but Gerizim was the place where Samaritans built their temple. All right? And a lot of that had to do with Jerusalem hadn't been established as a place of worship because the Samaritans only believed the first 5 books of the Bible, the Pentateuch. And if you read Genesis through Deuteronomy, you don't find anything about Jerusalem being the place to worship. That didn't happen until David came in, and David set up the temple there. He set up worship there, I should say. Solomon built the temple there. Between Ebal and Gerizim, letter B, you guys got something there, is Shechem. Now, we don't talk a lot about this. At least I haven't. I haven't preached a lot on the cities of refuge. There again, they're got notes on them, and I'm going to be preaching them one of these days. But what was Shechem? It means shoulder. What was it? City of refuge. Right? I'm not insulting your intelligence. I just want to know that you're alive. City of refuge. That's exactly what it was. And amazing. Oh, this is amazing stuff. In the book of Deuteronomy, God had 3 cities of refuge. All right? When it comes to Joshua chapter 20, and in that situation, God said, I'm going to give you 3 cities of refuge. And when I give you the land, I'm going to give you 3 more. You got to read Joshua 20, 1 through 6. What you're going to find is you're going to find 6 cities of refuge. All right? God lists them. Kadesh, Shechem, Barnea, they're all 6 listed there. And then what's amazing is, let's talk about a bunch of shells in your magazine. Premillennialists say, and I'm telling you, premillennialism feels every denominational group just about you're going to deal with. They're going to have some form of premillennialism in them. And so what they're going to say,
And guess what? Joshua 21 through 6, he gave them 6 cities of refuge. So either God lied or he lied. One of the two. Okay? You can't get around it. Either he gave them the land or he lied. That's all he can do. So that's a big thing for premillennialism. And of course they go into it. Jesus is going to come back to earth and literally physically sit on David's throne. And, of course, I'm sure Donnie's going to deal a little bit of this in the kingdom. What's the kingdom? What's the kingdom of the church? We understand that. We may know that intellectually, but man, if we can sit down with somebody that believes in premillennialism and really defeat this in a loving, kind way, we can help show them the truth. Premillennialism is a damning doctrine. It's a very, very bad doctrine. And it'll take people to hell if we don't help try to straighten them out on that, because hopefully we know the truth on it. All right, excellent. Number 8. Am I going too fast? Is everybody with me? All right, because I can't wait to get the land of Canaan, so I gotta wait. Wasn't there another group of people who couldn't wait to get to the land of Canaan too? I think there's a group of people like that. All right, Mount Zion. Mount Zion, also known as what? Mount Zion is known as, come on, speak out, people. We know each other. Jerusalem, that's right. Now, a lot goes on in Mount Zion, okay? A lot, really, really neat. It is actually, Jerusalem and Mount Zion are like so close together. They're the same place, but they aren't, if I can say that. They're just like right there together. Temple Mount was actually on Zion whenever Solomon built the Temple Mount, where he actually came up on, would have been in Zion, but they were just so close together, they became known as one and the same. Zion and Jerusalem. And so it basically means, well, Jerusalem, Salem means peace. And so that kind of changed. Of course, Isaiah 2, and I know Donnie's dealing with this. I heard him a little bit on Sunday, and then I know he's dealing with the kingdom and the coming kingdom in Isaiah 2. God said what? Where would his kingdom start? Well, I wish I had Brielle in here, Mark. She got this the other day. Mark's teaching the same thing to our that age group, my daughter's age group, in the back classroom on Sunday mornings. Doing a great job, by the way. Mark, I appreciate that. And I'll tell you what, those kids are learning a lot. Sometimes we just need to know what our students are learning. Those kids are learning a lot. We sit and have conversations all the time, Brielle and I do. And where did church start? Where did it start? Jerusalem. Who said it would start there? Yeah, God did. 700 years before it ever started. It was prophesied in Isaiah 2. The mountain of the Lord's house would be at the top of the mountains, and it would be in Jerusalem. That's where the law would go forth. And so, just amazing prophecies. Amazing. And so, we of course, a lot centers around Jerusalem as well. Okay, that is the bottom of your sheet. Now, let's go to 6 real quick. What I want to do is, here we go. I just want you to look at these cities. I'm just going to run through them. I'm going to run through them. I'm just going to skip through them a little bit. We've got Nineveh. Nineveh's up here. Of course, Nineveh is the capital of Assyria. And you remember a lot about Nineveh, right? Two books of the Bible center on Nineveh. Center on Nineveh. What 2 books would they be? Jonah, for sure. Jonah is the positive book on Nineveh. Then there's a negative book on Nineveh. It is. It's one of the minor prophets. And you know what? Before I started drinking this stuff and just eating this stuff regularly, I didn't know much about the minor prophets. But if you want to light your faith on fire and light your zeal for God, study the minor prophets. We will, I promise. Because it's just so exciting. Nahum was the other one, okay? And so what happens is, Jonah goes into, we all know that story, right? That's swallowed by a big fish. Well, how does that relate? Well, he went in and he said, hey, repent. God's going to overthrow this city. Remember, his sermon was just very pointed. The king in sackcloth and ashes repented. The people in sackcloth and ashes repented. They were so sorry. They didn't do it. We leave the book of Jonah sometimes thinking like, man, way to go Nineveh. Everything's great. Well, guess what? They're just like people. They're fickle. And they changed. They changed very shortly after that. Nahum came about and he said, now you ain't going to get a second chance. Nahum's prophecies about Nineveh primarily. And he's saying, you're going to get a second chance. And God's going to overthrow it. And God did overthrow it. He overthrew the Assyrians, but not before he used the Assyrians to do what? Yeah, carry his people away in the northern kingdom. The 10 tribes were carried away into Assyrian captivity, and guess what? Most of them never came back. We talk about the southern kingdom of Judah. A lot of them came back to Jerusalem. Of course, we have that under Ezra, Nehemiah. But but not northern kingdom. They didn't come back. They were scattered throughout the land. God was very sore displeased with him. Let me submit something else for your thoughts too. Why did he bring Judah back? Why did he bring Judah back? Or some of the remnant back? There's one reason.
Lineage.
What'd you say?
His promise.
Yeah, right there. You guys all hit it right. You all said 3 different words, I think. But you all hit it. Lineage, the promise, Jesus. Somebody said Jesus. That's why. That's why. And you know what? Sometimes when I'm looking at this big force of 66 books, I'm looking at this big force of 66 books. And I sort of miss some of the trees in it. Because I'm not really understanding the story. Me. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking me. Man, I'll tell you what. If I can get Genesis 1 through 11 down, and I pick up in chapter 12, chapter 12 is the rest, from chapter 12 on, is the carrying out of God's promise to Abraham. And what was it for? Why did he pick a group of people anyway? He picked a special group of people so he could bring about the Messiah, so he could fulfill the seed promise. I mean, tell you what, it starts to narrow down a little bit when you look at it that way. And, this is just exciting. All right, Nineveh. I can keep moving. I promised you I would. All right, Susa is in Elam. It's the capital of the Persian Empire. You remember Susa, right? From the book of Esther. Now these are sort of, I could barely pronounce it before, but now I know where it's at. I'm kind of seeing where it's at. And of course, Susa's over here. I'm going to let you guys look. I'm not going to take the time to point to all these because I'd like to finish this tonight. Haran is in Mesopotamia. Mesopotamia is bordered by 2 rivers. What are they? Yeah, great. You guys are so good. Awesome. All right, so that was Abraham's first camping place. He left and he went to Haran. Of course, Babylon was the capital of the Chaldeans, or the Babylonians. And Ur was on the Euphrates River. You remember Ur? Ur is down here. God called Abraham from Ur. He told him, Ur the Chaldeans said, I want you to leave. And of course, that's where the story begins. We got Damascus of Syria. I'm going to let you look at the rest of these. Tyre and Sidon. Jesus knew that if what was preached to other places would have been preached to Tyre and Sidon, they would have done what? They would have repented. And here's the value of Bible study. I never thought about this, just till the other day. I had somebody ask me this, would Tyre and Sidon have really repented? And I said, yes. How do you know? Because Jesus said they would have. Isn't that amazing how Bible study is? Jesus said they would have. Was he a liar? No, go ahead, Donnie.
Yeah, the fact that Nineveh repented. When we were in our last class, I spent a lot of time studying Tyre because it's so interesting. The judgment that was passed on Tyre. This is a terrible, wicked place that did its best to hurt God's people. And he took tremendous vengeance on them. And it makes me wonder about other people that, we're told that Jesus did so many things that are not recorded for us. Well, how many cities did God lay low because they wronged his people that we don't even know about? I wonder about those things. I think you're right. I think they would have repented because the focus it was.
Well, and I never thought of it that way. Sometimes you get a question, you have to think about it for a minute. I was like, well, would they ever? Well, yeah, they would have. Yeah.
In the same thread, the rich man's brothers wouldn't have repented if somebody had come back from the dead.
From the dead.
So God knows man, he knows his heart.
He sure does. That's a good point, and then we'll close. But sometimes we set up these straw men, like, what if a guy's on his way to the baptistry and he dies? You ever hear those arguments? Well, you know what? God knows, doesn't he? God knows. I'm almost inclined anymore to say, you know what? God's not going to let a man die on the way to the baptistry because he knows whether his heart would be right. I need to ask that question, and that's the same way with these people. That just might be something for you to think of. But of course, we get down through the rest of these cities. You can take these and look at them. I mean, we're going to deal with these a little closer as we jump into our other part. Any questions or comments? I knew we kind of skipped through that tonight, but I'm going to come back to a lot of this. So what I recommend you do is take your sheets, your new one, your lesson 2. If you have a second this week in your Bible studies, just sit down. You've got to go ahead and read through this and look at it. And there could be a typo in here. If you find any typos, feel free to add. Let me know because I'm not a super typer. I make a lot of mistakes. So look over that for next week. We will be back and study lesson 2. Canaan's going to be exciting. There's some archaeological finds, some goodies that we're going to dig out. So make sure you come back next week. Thank you so much for your time.